You're watching Experience Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
You know how every day, like anymore, there's like a holiday, like National Plaid Shirt Day, things like that. The 3rd of July, I think, should be called Day You Forgot Everything at the Grocery Store Day. And it should be a holiday where you have to celebrate the fact that you are toughing it out to go into the grocery store on the day before the 4th of July because you forgot to buy mouthwash or something stupid that could clearly wait until July 5th. But because it's July 3rd, you have to go to the grocery store and deal with all the idiots who are like, I think I'm going to buy fireworks today. And they didn't prepare and they don't know what poppers are. And, they're sold out of pretzels. It's a bad, bad day, man. Federal holiday, the day before 4th of July. National You Forgot Something at the Grocery Store Day. Just throwing it out there. This is Devil's Advocates. We're going to talk about who our favorite patriotic characters are. And we're going to talk about more than just that. There's obviously, that's kind of a cushy topic to talk about on the 4th of July. But we're going to get into some other things that are kind of important when we have this conversation. So stay tuned and we're going to have that conversation. We'll be right back after this.
Happy National Go to the Grocery Store Day for something you forgot.
Yeah. Am I wrong? I mean, does everybody not go through this like the day before major holidays? It's like, crap, I forgot toothpaste. Yeah, I don't want to go to the store, but I need it.
I feel like it's this day. It's the day before Thanksgiving, the day before Christmas, like all the major holidays that involve big food days.
Right? It's true. But happy 4th of July Day Eve, everybody.
Happy 4th of July, America, or, happy birthday, America.
Happy My Neighborhood sounds like the inside of a popcorn bag that's in the microwave day.
Okay, so quick question. This is kind of a seasonal show, so we're going to be a little loose with the formatting, I think. I got a question for you.
Yep.
How do you feel about people lighting off fireworks all the time? Because I've seen a lot of pushback on social media for people that are lighting off fireworks leading up to the 4th of July.
I am pyromaniac.
Okay. Yeah, like for me, it's never really bothered me, but like the more I talk to certain people, I feel like I kind of understand it a little bit more, like pet owners, and then honestly, veterans. And
Sure.
That's the one that really got to me. I was like, oh, that makes a ton of sense.
Sure. There's a lot of here's my thing. If you don't like it, I don't have a problem with you not liking it. If you do like it, great. It's one of those don't yuck anybody's yum.
Yeah.
But also we should be putting people in a position where if you don't like it, you don't have to deal with it.
Yeah, like Preston's comment here, this is kind of where I'm at with it. Like for me, it's like if you're being respectful, as in like, right when it turns dark, right before it turns dark, a couple days leading up to the 4th of July, I expect it. People, I had somebody lighting off something. I live in the middle of nowhere. I live in the, people around here are very proud to go to places to get stuff they shouldn't have and light them off at all hours. So the 1 a.m. giant boom, I could do without that.
So my Ohio just enacted a law last year that says from July 2nd through July 5th, from 7 at night to 11 at night, you can light off fireworks.
Okay.
And then next weekend, from like July 7th through, or whatever it is, like next weekend, you can also light fireworks off. And then again on July 15th. They have set days, and it's ironically they all kind of set with all the major municipalities in the state and when they have their celebrations.
Yeah. Okay.
So, like, Toledo's was last night. Yeah, last night. Now, our minor league baseball team is putting on another big one tomorrow night. Right? So they want this weekend to be available. Other places are next weekend
Okay.
because, they're coming here this weekend. They're going other places next weekend. So they've kind of made it that way. And I don't mind that. I think that's reasonable. There are certain hours where it's allowed, and then they've outlawed certain fireworks,
Yeah.
like the mortars, in the tubes that are really loud. Those kind of things have been outlawed essentially.
Yeah, that's been
So
illegal here for a while.
yeah, so it's one of those things is that they've done what they can do. I think if you have a problem with fireworks, if you have a problem with those things, I think we as a municipality need to do more to help you, you know, offer, I don't know, veterans with PTSD who have trouble, vouchers to go stay in hotels where it's soundproof. Or one of the things that's allowed is weed for dogs
Hmm.
here. So you could get your dog stuff to chill them out. Okay, let's make that legal for everybody. Free
Yeah,
Xanax for anybody who needs it.
I think that should be on the table anyway. But that's just me.
Well, yeah, no, I'm with you on that one, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean. It's like municipalities have to do more to accommodate for these things.
Yeah.
Like we've done what we can do legally because you're never going to stop people from shooting fireworks.
Yeah, and I almost feel like there's kind of the movement I'm talking about. There's a part of it that's a little bit like no fireworks, and I'm like, yeah, that's not going to happen. Let's you got to set your expectations. Like
Right.
if you came out with the argument only on the 4th of July from this time to this time, I could understand that a little bit better
Yeah.
than like trying to be like, we're going to ban fireworks. No, you're not.
Well, and what's funny is Ohio was a state where fireworks were banned,
Okay,
but it didn't stop anybody.
that's what I'm saying. Like it, it's like one of those things where like the prohibition is probably worse than regulating it.
It was banned, but we have giant fireworks stores not 2 miles from here because it wasn't banned in Michigan. So people would come here and buy them
Yeah.
and take them across the border because you couldn't buy. Michigan's law was you couldn't buy fireworks in Michigan and set them off in Michigan. So you had to carry them across state lines. So they'd come here to the first exit off the interstate to buy fireworks and then drive back across. And then we would go to the first exit across the interstate, buy our fireworks and bring them back. Or we would just lie about where we were setting them off. Like, it ain't hard. And,
Yeah.
Ship asked, how about just organized shows? And the answer to that is, boo you.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, like some of my fondest memories from when I'm a kid about the 4th of July, we had a municipal fireworks show and we'd go to that, but it was going home. And again, I live far outside of a town and doing our own thing and having our own, we'd have, my parents would have their friends over with their kids and we'd have our own little fireworks display. That was way more fun to me. And I mean, I'm talking when I was like 7 or 8 years old, right? Like, I don't know. It's a tough one.
Yeah, no, we were the same way when our city didn't have one. We would just invite the fire marshal and police chief to our party, and have our own.
There you
We'd
go.
get permitted that way.
Yeah.
So it worked out all right.
Real fast, I wanted to highlight Phil's comment here. So there was a bit of a problem with the show starting a little bit earlier. Sorry about that, folks. Just wanted to address that real fast because I know that some people were like, "What the heck? Where's the show?" Hopefully you're here now.
We have to. We're having a meeting. It's a thing that keeps happening that we need to fix. So, should we get into our actual topic, the conversation, or should we just keep talking about how Richard Shipp needs to be booed by everyone?
Oh, in the first half, yeah, I don't know, man. Then I got to the second half, and now I just feel bad.
No, I don't, because he misspelled attack. And
Well,
it's
he's
ship.
too busy. Too busy having a
So
problem.
Ship is an OG homie. He's helped us out a lot over the years. So we're gonna boo him as we boo friends. AEW Fight Forever is on Switch, yes. But that's a conversation for another day when we do our episode where Kyle teaches Bronze Age Nerd about wrestling.
That'll be quite the topic. And
Yeah.
by the way, real fast, we got some people that are jumping in. Just want to say hi to everybody coming in here. We appreciate you being here the day before the big holiday. We are going to be talking about patriotic superheroes tonight on the show. We're going to be talking about patriotic comics and also some other topics too that I think you should stay tuned for, that are going to relate to some kind of real world sort of situations and how that can be important. But tonight we are talking the patriotic characters to start off the show and the patriotic comics. So that's a fun topic, and I want you guys to have your questions and your take on patriotic characters. Kind of start thinking about that now, so we can get that in chat. We can kind of bounce off of that as you guys keep talking.
Only in as much as I know that it's a play on Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, I don't know that one. Roger Ramjet.
Yeah. So the answer is no, Preston. No one will get it. And I appreciate that. That you made a joke that no one will get. That is my life. So let me do this. Let me ask you this, Bronze. In your opinion, because we'll start off with the easy question: who is your favorite, or who do you think is the most patriotic character in comics?
So I'll actually, this is going to be a little bit of a longer answer than I even expected, because we were playing around with what the topic was earlier, and we kind of had some notes, and that question came up, and it actually kind of dawned on me. I don't really know that I have one, and I'll tell you that as a kid, even though like I was probably more patriotic as a kid than I am today, like I'm jaded and cynical now and all those kinds of things, I actually didn't like patriotic superheroes growing up. Like I thought they were boring, I guess, or bland maybe is better, more accurate than boring. And it's funny because I mean, I love G.I. Joe, which, I think is something that could definitely be in that conversation as kind of pseudo patriotism. That's probably not its primary objective, but it is kind of in there. But when I think about it as an adult, the only character that really, not the only character that I can think of, but the only character that I think can really deserve that mantle is Captain America. And so he has to be my answer, just because, I mean, what character? I mean, literally the name Captain America for one thing. What character is more associated in popular culture than Captain America? And it's kind of his thing. So, and there are other great patriotic superheroes, but that's the one that sticks out to me.
Yeah, I think that's the easy answer. And it's not wrong. But there have been moments where Superman has identified America's Boy Scout,
Right.
truth, justice, in the American way. You had Simon and Kirby literally leaving Marvel to do legally not Captain America in Fighting American. And so I think there are several options that are interesting. And for me, the answer is also Captain America. But what's interesting to me about it is that I identify Captain America as being more patriotic when he becomes Nomad, when he kind of takes on some of these other less cookie cuttery tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
And so no one mentions DC's Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam is right up there for me.
Oh yeah.
By the way, Alex Ross's work on that book was so good. So I think that's my answer is probably Fighting American, because Marvel wanted to make Captain America sort of not what he was envisioned, so
Yeah.
they had to remake him. But if I were gonna stick to the big ones, it's Captain America, but it's Captain America kind of as Nomad in that period where War Machine is kind of carrying the mantle, or Bucky's carrying the mantle of Captain America, and he's Nomad.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of contenders. You know, I know Richard was talking to War Machine. A few others are throwing some out there. I mean, there's just for patriotic costumes, Stargirl, Super Patriot, Patriot, and Marvel. I mean, there's quite a few really.
When you think about, you kind of already answered the question, but when you think about those characters, like, do you identify with them at all? Do you feel like they? And this is the question I wanted to ask. When you read Captain America, when you read G.I. Joe, I know you're a Joe fan.
Yeah.
When you read these characters, do they speak to you in that way of kind of bringing up patriotism, or bringing up kind of how you feel about that kind of stuff?
I mean, they definitely evoke how I feel about patriotism, which it's something that it's a strange thing, because to me it is more complicated for me than I think it may be for others. Not all others, because I know a lot of people have kind of conflicted feelings about how they feel about maybe the United States role in the world, and all those sorts of different things. But it does, when I read those types of comic books, when I read about those characters, it certainly makes me think about it, which is honestly pretty awesome, because it's doing its job. I mean, more so maybe than just kind of taking the characters at face value and saying, oh, they're a patriotic character, and then just kind of moving on. It actually does kind of make me do kind of a, not a double take, but a second thinking about it, because it is one of those things where it's like, what does that character stand for? And then if you think about it, what does any character really stand for? Because there's a lot of heroes out there that people love that don't necessarily stand for much other than maybe a cool image, or something that means something special to that person about that character, or nostalgia from when they read them. But patriotic superheroes really do have an extra layer. They are a little deeper in a weird way, because it's something on the surface that maybe kind of seems shallow, but they have a greater calling, like a lot of superheroes seem to have. But it is something that is usually devoted, at least the majority are devoted to their country. And the other element, and a few people mentioned it here too, it's important to point out, patriotic doesn't just necessarily mean for our own country, but
Sure.
As an American, I definitely have that bias when I think of that too. But yeah, it is something that makes me really kind of wonder about how I feel about it, maybe in a way that a lot of other things don't. Except for the 4th of July. The 4th of July really makes me think about it too. And I'm probably sounding like I'm some kind of like pseudo anti-American here. No, it's just that I'm just really cynical about how things have gone in this country, and our role in the world stage, and how we're viewed, and all those kinds of things.
Sure.
To the point where I love my country, and I really do want it the best for it. And I want us to be the best we can be for all the world. But it does bring up those feelings of like, are we the good guys or not? That kind of stuff. And that's kind of a deeper core question that brings
Right.
up.
Well, it's somebody put Superman Red Sun in here as an example, as an answer, or and we talked about Captain Canuck. You mentioned Captain Canuck, but we threw that up there. Captain Britain, Captain Planet, which may be the right answer at the end of the day.
Most patriotic.
Right. Most patriotic, because all the patriotics.
Yeah.
Not just American or British or Canadian. It's everybody. We got to save the whole, like, I'm with you in that, for me, I really only think about them as being patriotic like this week. I don't really think about Captain America as being this American patriot character or any other ones except for the week of the 4th of July. And that got me thinking about this comment from Preston.
Yeah.
Less of costumed heroes and more like Sergeant Rock, Sergeant Fury, and Blackhawk. Yes.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that.
Right. It's 4th of July around my house is a cookout day, but 3rd of July around my house is war movie day. Except it's really hard to watch war movies when you have a 2.5-year-old nephew who's visiting for the 4th of July. It was a lot of 2.5 minutes of a war movie, and then 3.5 hours of racing Hot Wheels cars, and then 2.5 minutes of a war movie, and then water balloon fight, and then 2.5 minutes of a war movie, and then why are we watching the Santa Claus? But
oh, is Santa Claus the most patriotic character? Is that the real secret answer here?
Let's put it this way: this kid turned down Bluey in favor of the Santa Claus today.
Now that's commitment.
Yeah, like it was a fight. So maybe.
Wow.
But no, it's yeah. I think Sergeant Rock, Sergeant Fury, Black Hawk, G.I. Joe, they all fit in that realm.
Yeah.
And really what I wanted to talk about was kind of the next thing I'm going to bring up. And I want to open the phone lines before we really dive into this topic. So we're going to take our first break here in just a second. But before we jump in on that, I want to throw it out there. Do patriotic characters, especially Americanized patriotic characters, so Captain America, Fighting American, that type of character, do they still have relevance in the comic book world? And is it the same relevance they had when they were created? So we'll talk about that when we come back. We're going to take our first break. I want to remind everyone that we are off tomorrow. There are no shows tomorrow here in the Experience. Everybody's going to spend time with their family and hopefully come back with the same number of fingers they started with, especially my production team, because if they can't click their mouse, what are they even doing here? But we're off tomorrow, and then we're back Wednesday with the Dan Wickline Show and an all-new time for Comic Collectibles. Comic Collectibles is leaner and meaner for the summer. They got their summer body going, and they're 1 hour from 7 to 8 Eastern on Wednesday with Comic Collectibles with Rex and John, followed by our normal lineup of great shows on Wednesday. So be sure to tune in for that. We will be right back after this with open phone lines, and you can call in and you can talk to us.
To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise of adventure, a promise of excitement, a promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey, and behind every page there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop today. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
You know how when you go to Comic-Con, after Comic-Con, you go to the hotel bar, and there's a whole bunch of people playing music and dancing, and you've got Pikachu and Lara Croft Tomb Raider doing the cha-cha slide just down from Deadpool and Batman and Wonder Woman? That's every Saturday night over on the Experience Twitch channel. Join Taji Beats for the EXP Dance Party, exclusively on Twitch, twitch.tv/the_EXP. Why was Princess Zelda sad after watching a bunch of YouTube videos? She couldn't find a link in the description. We'll stop if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's super easy. Click subscribe and click the bell when you do. And thanks for supporting the EXP. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to Devil's Advocates. I am producer Kyle. That is Bronze Age Nerd. And we are talking about patriotic characters today on this July 3rd special edition of where we're coming to you from inside of a popping bag of popcorn here on this day before a holiday. Like, this is a soundproof room and I can hear the fireworks. They're like they must be setting them off right behind my office.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like in this neighborhood, which is cool because it means I can go outside and watch them when we're done. But like when I have both in-ears in, I only sort of hear a pop like someone is flicking my window. Really annoying.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things about fireworks. You know, briefly to go back to that, it is annoying. It's like when there's a bunch going off, to me, it's just kind of like almost like a white noise. But when there's like just one boom or pop out of the middle of nowhere, and you're just kind of like, God, what was that? That's annoying. I totally admit to that.
Ship, you're not allowed to soundproof fire escape windows. Like there are laws. And I know because I pushed them and I had to take the stuff down.
Aw,
so.
No fun, police.
All right. Yeah, it's true. So we're going to open up the phone lines now for the second half of the show. 1-567-318-6507. 1-567-318-6507. You can call into the EXP. You know that phone number comes up in a few weeks. I think I'm going to try and change it to like 567 EXP call.
Ooh.
Or something fancy.
Yeah, not 867-5309 though.
No, you can't do that. It won't let you. I tried.
Yeah, okay. Just checking.
If you think I didn't try that when I set up the phone number to begin with, you've misunderestimated your man.
Everybody tried it.
Yeah. It's true. Anyway, so the question we asked before the break is, do characters like Captain America and Fighting American and some of those characters have the same relevance today they did? Or is there relevance today for new and different reasons? And so Preston says, I can't say that characters conceived during the Second World War or even the Cold War have the same relevance outside of those eras, but I believe that patriotism is still a strong emotion and relevant today as well. It could be explored that Falcon and Winter Soldier with U.S. Agent as the patriot. Yeah. And that's kind of what I'm saying, is that the Captain America that most appeals to me as a patriotic character is Captain America who still loves his country and is still patriotic, but is totally disenfranchised with everything happening.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's kind of how it's kind of how I feel sometimes, you know? Like, I was that kid growing up who wanted to be the kid from Iron Eagle. And then I learned that Lou Gossett Jr. made like 9 of those things. And I didn't want to be that kid anymore. Because that seemed like a lot.
But then you saw Nicolas Cage in Firebirds, and it was all a new thing to you.
No. Then I saw Tom Cruise in Top Gun and went, yeah, I made the right decision getting out of that deal. Who wants to play volleyball with the guy from ER? I don't understand.
And Batman.
Right. Little kid Kyle was definitely weirded out by a lot of this. Anyway, but over the years, I've become sort of frustrated with the way America is presented, even in comics, in these books. And so that was why the question came up: is do you think they still have relevance? And are they relevant for the same reasons?
Yeah, and I think the answer is yes, and then no. I think they still have relevance because of the subversion of expectations that happens a lot with patriotic characters. And for me, my favorite example of that, and I confess I am not a reader of the comics. I bounced off of it pretty fast, but the show, which I know is a little different. When you talk about Homelander from The Boys, okay, very upfront, patriotic character, presented as, like America's boy, kind of a lot like Superman, obviously, but played up to the nth degree, as you would expect. However, you peel back the layers and it's all corporate. It's he's a sadist, all these kinds of different things that are kind of beneath that first layer of the onion as you peel it back, or the layer dip, to keep it topical for the 4th of July. And to bring up food again.
Well, I mean, we got to have onions to put on our hot dogs and hamburgers on the 4th of July, so it still works.
Yeah. So to me, that's where it becomes relevant as a not really I want to say storytelling device, but that's not really even what it is. It's a just a vehicle to be able to tell some interesting, allegory for what people feel about the current state of America, or their current patriotism, or, like I mentioned earlier, the current cynicism towards that. So I think it's relevant for those reasons, and to a lesser extent still relevant in the same way that it was probably originally intended, which is to be maybe more of a rah kind of a thing. I think there are still fans of that type of character and behavior out there. I just don't think there's as much market appeal for it, probably.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Although Homelander, The Boys wasn't where I went with that, but it's a really good analogy. Much better than the one I had in my brain. So I'm glad you made it. That's true. And it's, Dan says Soldier Boy is more of a classic patriot character, while Homelander is a modernized manufacturer character. Yes.
Right. And the dichotomy of those two characters is very interesting together too.
Right. And the Captain America that Joe and Jack made is not the Cap we have today. When Stan and Jack remade him into a man out of time, and also more retrospective, is when he became more relevant. That's true. But it's also why I prefer Fighting American to Captain America. And that story is, Joe and Jack wanted this character to behave and feel a certain way. It was the Nazis during World War II, and it was the Russians during the Cold War. And Marvel wanted Captain America to keep punching Nazis, but the Nazis were beat. So they wanted him to move on to fighting communists and other things. And Marvel didn't want to do that. So they left. And they made Fighting American, which was more relevant to what they wanted. And what Stan did, to his credit, was turn this character that was sort of a one-trick pony. Captain America punches Nazis, it's what he does, into a tentpole, really, for Marvel for a long time. By adding different layers and the man at a time and the introspection and all that kind of stuff, that is the reason that he kept his relevance. I think the ability to adapt that character into a second thing, really has made him the reason that he gets to where he is today. But could a character like that, like Captain America, brought on for the same reasons Captain America was brought in, brought up for the same reasons that G.I. Joe was created during the Cold War, that kind of stuff, could those characters be created today, and would they have the same appeal, do you think?
I think they definitely could. It's interesting how the stories that creators want to tell changes, I'd say kind of by generation. And I just don't see a lot of creators wanting to tell those kinds of stories, it seems like, with the exception of retreading and rehashing some of the properties, like your G.I. Joe still going strong. It's just kind of its own thing that it has been forever, but you don't see any kind of new. I'm trying to think if that's actually true. I haven't really seen any kind of new, take on that kind of a story, for example. And I think that it could definitely be done. As for the original kind of intention and reasons behind that, the trick is, what's the greater story, and is that something that's going to appeal to readers? And this is kind of biting at the core of something that's been bothering me for a while, which is, why do I personally find myself turning away from a lot of comics and stories out there that I'm exposed to these days versus stories in the past? And by the way, wanting to fight that feeling for years. Like
Yeah.
it intensely bothers me that I can't find a lot of new comics to enjoy. I'm not going to say like none. I definitely find new comics I enjoy, but not anywhere near at the same rate that I used to. And I have to ask myself questions like, is that because I'm different? Is that because the world's different? Is that because comics are different? Is it a combination of all three of those things? Which is kind of what I lean towards. But it really depends. You know, I feel like that kind of storytelling is something that the modern generation of writers is not as likely to bring to the table. However, I do think it could make a very interesting kind of wrapper for a story to be put in. Especially again, depending on what the conflict is, depending on, you know, if it's are you trying to tell a war story? Are you trying to tell a story about you know, I like in my head, I could just see something like trying to tell a story about like a new World War III, Cold War type situation, and having it start out with this intention of like, this is going to be like this crazy patriotic team of characters or something like that. And then hitting a roadblock and finding out that, you know, the world's changed and then these people still have these ideals and they're conflicted with it. I could see stories like that. You know, that's just off the top of my head. I could see stories like that being told in interesting fashions, but I just I don't see, I feel like like I was talking about earlier, I feel like a lot of writers are either too cynical or have their own motivations to tell different kinds of stories, to tell those stories these days. That's just my opinion about it.
Yeah, I think what we're finding is that I'm going to make a statement that I don't necessarily agree with to set this up, but just know I'm getting there. We're far enough away from a war at the moment that those stories of we need someone above and beyond our own regular troops to win the war, like a Captain America or a Fighting America or something like that, um, isn't a thing that's of relevance in that regard. Now, I know that we're not far from a war,
Yeah.
depending on how you define things like what have happened in Iraq and Afghanistan and, things that our military is still currently facing. We're not, but they don't look like they used to. And every and with that, it's how do you tell a story when the current war that we're fighting is being fought with ICBMs and fighter planes and not necessarily as many boots on the ground someplace.
Or when it is told with, you know, through boots on the ground and actual uh yeah, personal combat, close up combat, it is against, you know, in a lot of cases against quote unquote insurgents. It's
Right.
against, you know, quote unquote terrorists. I mean, I'm just trying to be
Right. It's
delicate
not
about
like
it
you're
because
fighting the Nazis anymore. You're
yes, it's
fighting
not it there and I hate to say it because even today it sounds a little weird, but like, you know, the Soviet slash communist threat was
right.
a little bit more of just kind of this unknown bad guy kind of thing that was out there when you grew up in the Cold War era, which is why Cobra is so perfect.
It's true. And it's one of the reasons that I really do like GI Joe for this argument, right? Like is that it does kind of balance that old school kind of Captain America school of thought with the new school. Well, things are different. We're not, it's not as one to one as it used to be kind of thought.
Yeah.
And GI Joe, especially when they cross over with the Transformers, really can do that because now you have planes.
It's
Um,
true.
the more comics you consume, the less bullcrap or the more bullcrap you will not accept. It's true. Very true.
Yeah.
So I guess the last question I kind of wanted to ask and I kind of wanted to talk about is if we were to create a new ultra patriotic character,
I
uh,
love that.
Learn
Learn.
nerd. I
Yeah.
can't do it. I can't do it. Hurts my brain. Hurts my brain. I love it, but I can't do it. Can't say it. Just nope.
It works better reading it than it does saying out loud. I will say
Right.
that.
It's true. It's true. So the last question is: if you were going to make a new ultra patriotic character, what would it look like?
Wow, that is a phenomenal question, and I really hope people in the chat are paying attention to that too, because I actually am extremely curious what your all answers would be to that question.
If you want to call in and pitch us your ultra patriotic characters, 1-567-318-6507, 1-567-318-6507.
Yeah, I guess for me, like, it almost like has to, for me to be engaged with that at my place in life, I would need to kind of have some sort of subversion of expectations occur, like um somebody from an opposition force gets reprogrammed, like a la like a RoboCop kind of thing, or mental conditioning or whatever, to be this patriotic superhero. And or again, I'm just kind of spitballing here, like something along those lines, like either that, or maybe you take it on the cyber front, and you go with, because I know there's a lot of cyber warfare that's starting to happen, and you kind of change the dynamic so it's not man with a shield or a stars and stripes costume or firecrackers outside my door that totally scared the shit out of me. Sorry. I was like, what is going on? Oh yeah, 3rd of July. There we go. So see, I understand people. But yeah, I think that's kind of like where I'd have to go with it. It's something definitely kind of turning that on its head. Like if you just brought forth a cookie cutter style character like that, I'm not going to engage with it. So
Right.
that it has to be something along those lines.
Figure drawing, to answer your question, is you get to define it. Like that's the point, right? Like we talked about how Captain America was created at a certain time with a certain definition of patriotism and how things have changed. So you get to define your definition of patriotism. For me, it would definitely look a lot more like Klinger at the end of MASH, or some of the other stories that we've already heard told, where it's someone winds up in a place for maybe not the greatest reason, right? Like, so it's an American soldier or a soldier from any country winds up somewhere in a place where they're fighting for their country and comes to love the country they're in, and doesn't necessarily defect, but once the conflict is over, chooses to stay and rebuild and make it better.
Yeah.
It would have to be a story like that, kind of comparing and contrasting the times of war and struggle and versus the now, and have that same person be like, I was, their patriotism is sort of defined by their ideals beyond just conflict, right? So it's that Superman Red Sun mentality, right? There are things that rise above countryhood. So, truth and justice are important no matter where you are.
Yeah.
The doing the right thing is important no matter where you are. So this person who wants to go home but can't leave because they need to do the work of rebuilding and fixing and teaching, and so Dan says, because of how patriotism has been embraced by one of the political parties, it'd be extremely difficult without doing something like Pacemaker. But you could do it if you focus on the character and patriotism is treated like a flaw or something that holds him back. The story would have to be the patriot learning the reality of the government, but still believing in the principles the country was made on. Preston says the Serpent probably felt they were patriotic, so maybe somebody like Nomad who sees the shortcomings to blind patriotism. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
It's this idea of kind of redefining and reconfiguring what you think and how you think it, right? Would be how it would be interesting to me.
Yeah. And to speak to to Dan's first comment there, and that is kind of like where that's where I land on this is if you bring forward a story that has patriotism so intrinsic to its story, in 2023, you are going to basically be lighting a powder keg in a lot of ways with some of your audience, no matter which way you go with the story. And I do think what could be interesting is playing off that expectation. I'm not necessarily, a good enough writer or creative to come up with that idea. But I definitely think that there is room in the world to tell a story about that duality that exists in America, especially, although other countries as well, through the lens of a patriotic character. I definitely think that is possible.
Yeah. So one of the things that we also want to talk about is, I wanted this kind of patriotic character because, again, if you're English, Captain Britain is your patriotic character, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I wanted to make sure we didn't talk about patriotism, specifically American patriotism. So that was, when I ask for what kind of characters we make, everybody gets to define their own. So I'm still looking for other people's ideas. What kind of patriotic characters would you make? But someone said it earlier, and I'm going to bring it back up here.
I do got to say, though, with the Captain Britain comment, that is some serious Union Jack disrespect.
Ooh, that's a good one. Preston said earlier, to be truthful, I think less of costume heroes and more like G.I. Joe, Sergeant Rock, Sergeant Fury, and Black Hawk. One of the things that I know, Bronze, you have a big passion for and you spend time working on is real life veterans issues and veterans affairs, and that kind of thing. So tell us how you got into that and where that comes from, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you support and how our viewers can support them.
Yeah, so this is one of those things where I'm gonna have to give you a short bio here, a little bit on me or part of my origin story. This is why part of the reason why my feelings about patriotism and nationalism are interesting. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with things like G.I. Joe. I really loved it. And what I wanted to do when I grew up was join the military. For a few reasons, some health related, some philosophy related. As I got near that age, and let's just put it this way, I was graduating right before 9/11. So maybe that'll kind of give you some kind of context into how I felt about things. I decided not to do that. Part of me regretted it. Part of me was happy I made that decision. But because I made that choice, I always had an enormous amount of respect for anybody who did serve, because they did make the choice to go potentially fight for our country. I know not necessarily everybody who joins the military goes and fights for our country, of course, but many did. And then also, especially for those who never had the choice in times where we had a draft or other things going on, and they were essentially forced to go do this horrendous thing. Sacrificial, patriotic, yes, but also horrible and terrible. And as I grew up and I started working with more veterans just in my life, when I was in college, one of my I almost say teammates, it's not the real classmates, in a project I was working on was a former Navy SEAL. I ended up working at a couple firearm stores, and I worked with a lot of veterans there, worked with a lot of law enforcement. I was exposed to a lot of veterans, and I just ended up having this tremendous amount of respect for them. But I also was picking up on how poorly they are often treated and how many mental health issues they often deal with. And these are people that have essentially worked for all of us, and signed up to potentially defend us. And it always left me with this feeling that that's something that I cared about, and I always wanted to try to improve their situation, their life. and I could have done more throughout the years, but I definitely tried to. Then when I got big into comic books and the YouTube scene, I got contacted, set up with some people that were veterans, former law enforcement, former military, mostly former military, but some former law enforcement as well. And both, and they were out there trying to help other veterans in the comic book community deal with things like those mental health issues, or even just the medical issues that they face, that they're not getting the right kind of support from the VA and that kind of stuff too, which is also a tragedy when that happens. And by the way, I'm going to give a quick shout out to them because they're an awesome group of people. There is, if you go follow an Instagram account called X11 Bravo, that is the group that goes out there. And the biggest thing they do, and I'll mention this real fast, is they try to collect comic books from the community for veteran members of the community. And they will try to get a special comic book that holds some sort of significance to that person with like a patriotic themed cover, or it's their favorite, a Captain America, a G.I. Joe, the Twin Towers 9/11 memorial issue of ASM, those sorts of things. And they'll get that comic book slab. They'll put a whole bunch of comic books that are interested in that person in a really awesome care package with like a custom slab stand and all kinds of stuff. And they'll send that care package out to that person in the community. And just seeing the veterans' reactions to that stuff is amazing. And I've worked a lot to kind of boost them and support them. And one of the charities that we've kind of collectively really backed and decided to support is a group called Mission 22, which deals with, again, mostly those mental health issues, but also other issues that comes up for veterans as well along the medical alliance and support they need. And that's just a group that I've done charity auctions and fundraisers for. We've raised thousands of dollars for them, trying to really support what we can and give back where we can. And something that I do every Veterans Day, I do an auction for them, that kind of stuff. So, and a lot of other members of the community too. And that's just awesome seeing people support that. So that's something that means a lot to me, and something we just kind of want to talk about here on the eve of America's birthday, where a lot of soldiers are dealing with the fireworks outside, or they're dealing with complicated issues about their country and how they feel about it, or a lot of different things. It can be a hard day for veterans, and I know those guys are busy at work being support network for those people. So that's just something I wanted to kind of point out there. Maybe consider, if you're able, if you're willing, donating a little bit to them. We did post a link in the chat right now.
It's also in the description of the video.
Yeah. And if you're interested in possibly sending in books or something like that, that's something a lot of people I've noticed are pretty willing to do that. They're like, hey, I've got some stuff I know some veterans might like, or and that's the thing, is so many veterans are affected by comic books. I mean, and they read comic books like G.I. Joe on deployment, or they could get them from their PX or whatever. And there is a huge history and love and support kind of comic books with the military that has a serious history. Some of the greatest characters we've ever known in comics were created by veterans because of things they saw in war. So speaking of Captain America and Superman and all these other people. So yeah, something that I'd point out.
Yeah. So that was going to be my next question, was tell me about Mission 22, because we've got to give the link to give and check out all the things they're doing. And actually, we've talked about X11 Bravo in the past. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We had kind of not a light talk about patriotic characters, but not a real heavy talk. But I do feel, while the military is not such a thing in my family, although we did have people serve all the way up through the Second World War in my family, we've all been medically disqualified since then, ironically. But I know it's important to you, and it's important to all of us. I think that there's so many nuanced, niche parts of the comic collecting community that when we can support something like this that's so universal, veterans awareness, veteran mental health issues, things like that we can stand up and say, hey, you know what? We've got this show. We're grateful that you all came and watched and talked to us. Please, please, please click the link. Give what you can, if you can.
Or even just go read about
right.
some of the stuff they have on their site. honestly, raising awareness for this kind of stuff, because maybe it'll, maybe then you'll want to be able to give when you're in a place where you can down the road or something like that. It's important because I think people don't understand like how much higher the suicide rate is among veterans. It is just soberingly high.
Right.
And it's just something that if you take a little time to kind of read through their stuff, at least check them out, share it out. I mean, none of that stuff hurts. So
Right. No. Yeah. So check that out. Find out about them. Like, I can't afford to give right this second, but what I can do is buy some stickers. That's something that's easy.
yeah,
Do what you can when you can. Is the answer to that one. And so that's the show for today. Really. The Netta ask, is Peacemaker patriotic? I'm not sure he considers himself patriotic, from Preston. I would argue that to understand the Peacemaker, you have to go back to that old adage: there are no villains, only people who are doing bad things for what they believe to be the right reasons. So,
yeah, I'd say he definitely. I'm loosely familiar with the comics version. That I wasn't a big DC guy in the 80s and 90s. I watched the whole show, for example, and all the Suicide Squad movie. That version of Peacemaker, 100% thinks he's a patriot.
right,
I don't think anybody else is going to agree with him.
right. You think you're doing the right thing, but maybe you're not.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the answer to that question. So, comedian from The Watchmen, kind of the same boat, man.
Yeah, actually, he might be more patriotic just because he did some terrible and nasty stuff, but he did do it under orders.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
I'll be honest. Anything from Alan Moore probably needs to be disallowed because the nuance is too deep.
He's like 7 layers down on that 7-layer dip.
Right. The comedian is, that's well, and like Dollar Bill from The Watchmen.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these other characters, it's like, I don't know how to answer that question. That's a tough one. But that's kind of why we had the conversation, right? It's a let's talk about it and kind of see where we come down on things, and sort of solve it a little bit every week. So
yeah, I appreciate everybody having this conversation with us about this topic and having a mature conversation about it too, and being able to talk about some serious aspects of it, and then also at the same time still gear up and celebrate America's birthday. So I love it.
yeah, it's thanks everybody for tuning in. Dell, I'm glad you made it, man. We are just wrapping up. We've been talking about what we think about patriotic characters, who we think the best ones are, kind of where we come down on that, and kind of a light 4th of July Eve conversation. Bronze, you are live later tonight.
Yep. In 1 hour's time, I'll be going live over on my channel doing a giveaway show for the 4th of July. Part of that giveaway is for my channel members. Other parts of it are for people that participate in the chat. Just kind of wanted to give some stuff out and kind of celebrate in that way. Just kind of seemed like a good idea. And then later tonight, we'll be doing a movie watch along on my Discord server. If you want to go join up those things, go find me a Bronze Age Nerd on YouTube, and you'll see me live in 1 hour.
Absolutely. We will be back next week with another show where we will be talking about something we'll come up with.
Or something you'll come up with if you want to suggest a topic to us.
Yes. You can do that by heading over to theexplive.com, which is the EXP's website, and submitting a form. And I will put the form in the comments as well for you to fill out if you'd like, where you can tell us what you would like us to talk about in the future here on The Devil's Advocates. So thanks to everyone for being here. Thank you to Bronze Age Nerd. Thank you to Jay behind the scenes for being here. Happy 4th of July, everybody. Enjoy the day off. Please come back and see us Wednesday with all the original fingers and toes. And if you can't do that, please, 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 don't tell me about it. I have a weak stomach. We'll see you next time.
Happy 4th of July.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.